Today, I'm gonna be walking you guys through step by step how I was able to set up this nursery enclosure for all of my baby chameleons. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So I first off want to start by saying there is more than one way to raise baby chameleons. This is how I'm choosing to do it. I'm really liking it, so I want to be able to share it with you guys. I currently have 31 babies, so that means I have 31 enclosures right now. So let's talk through how I got this all set up. So I first waited until I knew how many eggs that I had that were fertile. And based off of that, I planned to make sure that I would have an individual enclosure, assuming every single baby hatched. Now, not every single baby did end up hatching, but I wanted to make sure I at least had enough space for everyone in case they all decided to hatch, which, you know, fingers crossed, all of yours do. Also, this is in the context of having full clutches. If you just have one egg, one baby chameleon, then this would not make sense in that scheme. This is specifically for breeding, anticipating that you're gonna have lots and lots of babies, because every single baby should have its own enclosure. And the reason for this is this ensures that your baby is not competing for bugs. There's no like competition or fighting. And this is what's recommended in best practice to ensure that every single baby is raised healthily to be as strong as possible. If you think about it this way, when chameleons hatch in the wild, they hatch and then they disperse. They're on their own. They're not a communal species. They're not raised by their parents. They're not, like a pack animal where they all kind of like work together. So it really is recommended to have enough space for every single baby, which means we're working with slightly smaller enclosures, plus they're little peanuts anyways. But just a consideration if you're deciding to breed is that this is something that you'll want to do for your babies. So once I figured out how many eggs I had to do some math. I knew I wanted to use the Zoomed Nano Reptibreezes. That's the enclosures I have here. They are 10 feet wide, 12 inches tall. Did I say 10 feet? They're 10 by 10 by 12 inches. So 10 inches wide, 10 inches deep, and 12 inches tall. This is what I wanted to use for my babies. They're screen enclosures, so the top is screen, sides are screen, and the front is an acrylic. I've heard great things from other breeders. I have a partnership with Zoomed, so they were nice enough to actually donate and gift me all of these enclosures, which is absolutely amazing. So highly, highly recommend them now that I've been using them for almost 4 months, which is why I've waited to make this video in the first place, because I wanted to make sure whatever I recommend, I actually recommend, because I've been using it for a while now. So I knew the width, I knew how many eggs I had, so I did some math of like what size rack am I going to use in order to strategically, most efficiently have space for everyone. So I ended up getting 36-inch racks that allowed me to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shelves. So if I do 3 times 5, that allows me 15 enclosures per rack based off of that math. So then I got 3 racks, so I was able to anticipate having a total of 45 enclosures that I could fit. Now I think at the time I was anticipating like 38 or 39 eggs, and so then I would have enough space for everyone. So I ended up getting these, what do you want to call them, like baker's racks or storage shelves or whatever you want to call them, but they're just metal racks that I got off Amazon. Literally everything that I'm discussing will be linked on my website. If you go to inepttothe-chameleon.com, go to shopping list, and then there'll be hatchling supplies. Maybe I'll rename it one day to be like Chameleon Nursery. But basically like all the stuff that I use for my baby. So these exact shelves will be listed there. They're pretty easy to assemble. They're not too heavy, and they've got kind of like the crisscross kind of racks because I needed that in order to attach my UVB bulbs. Like I wanted the wires, I didn't want it to be solid, I guess is my point. So step 1 was building all of these racks. Was a lot of work, labor of love. Did this months in advance because I'm trying to be prepared. So that was step 1. Step 2 was building all the Nano Reptibreezes. I just would put a movie on, sit on the floor, and I would just bust out building out these nanos. Super, super easy. It would take me like, I think I timed myself, an average of like 8 minutes to build an enclosure. I got pretty quick about doing it, so I built out all of those, and then the next step after that was attaching the background. So we want to make sure that we provide a visual barrier for all the chameleons. Since these are screen enclosures, if I just stuck them all side by side, then all the babies would be able to see each other. So that's one reason. Also, I knew I was going to be misting these enclosures, and then water was going to be going everywhere. So by having the sides wrapped, not only does that create a visual barrier, but also helps hold the humidity and prevent water from going everywhere. Now, I did try a few different methods of things that I've done. For my adult enclosures, I'll use like vinyl printouts, but I'm trying to be, cost efficient of this. So I'm like, what if I just use like a shower curtain? But the caveat was I want it to be outer space themed because the parents of this clutch are Neptune and Venus. Plus all my other reptiles are outer space themed. So I was like, okay, that'd be really sick. Because I feel like everyone does like very plain Jane, black or white backgrounds, or they go the naturalistic vibe. I was like, I want these to look sick and I want to have a fun time doing it. So I ended up doing outer space. I tried to find outer space shower curtain, no luck on Amazon. But what I did find, which ended up being like even better, were these vinyl printouts. They're like vinyl stickers basically, meant for, I think like a Cricut, where you can like kind of DIY your own stickers. But the dimensions of these are 10 by 12 inches, which is the exact size of these nano reptibreezes. I was like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. So I don't have to sit there and like cut out they're already the exact size. I was like, this truly could not be better. They had a bunch of different outer space ones. I picked one, I love them. So I ended up attaching those to the outside. Originally, I used sticky dots on all 4 corners, but eventually like some of the corners started to like kind of come off. So I used the sticky dots, and then I just took like Scotch tape and then put a strip on the top, and that has worked out perfectly. I haven't had any issues since then with any of the enclosure backgrounds falling off. So that was the next step. Once I had all the backgrounds, then it was time to start building out the inside. Now, at the time of me building out these enclosures, I was dealing with mealybugs for my adult enclosures. Now, mealybugs are this like highly contagious plant pest, which means they'll go from plant to plant, absolutely destroying them. They'll be in the soil, they'll be in the crevices of your enclosure. Like they will jump from one enclosure to the next. My entire reptile room was infested. I had plants in here and like those all got destroyed by mealybugs. So we had to go like full nuclear. Back in November of last year, I took out every single live plant I had. I tossed them. I had to scrub the enclosures top to bottom. I did a whole video on that if you want to know everything that went into it. But then I was in quarantine, right? I was not bringing any live plants into my reptile room until I was like 100% sure. So I waited a whole like 6 months before I brought live plants back in here. But that was the same time I was building out these enclosures. So I did not want to bring live plants into my enclosures while I was dealing with this mealybug infestation. Really poor timing. So I opted for using fake plants. Now, like if I were to do it again, I probably would opt in for like a live plant, but I will say the fake plants have been working really, really well for me. They're super sterile, they're super clean, and it makes it very easy for me to keep track of like which babies are pooping, which ones maybe aren't. But you could totally do bioactive bottom. You could totally do live plants. Just as someone who's a first-time breeder going through this, like I've actually really appreciated the more sterile environment, making it very easy for me to keep track of, like I said, the status of the babies. So I did end up getting fake plants from Home Goods. Now, these are silk leaves, like they're soft and flexible. They're not like the stiff, hard, plasticky ones, and Home Goods had like a deal on them. So definitely go that route versus maybe buying like reptile branded ones if you're balling on a budget. So I got those, and then I used naturalistic branches. These are from birch trees. This is also what I use in my adult enclosures. I'm just using basically twigs because the babies are so incredibly small. I'm not gonna be using any like thick, big branches. I'm gonna use teeny twigs. And because the babies are so small and like weigh nothing, I was able to just break the branches into approximately the 10 inches wide, and I just wedged them in there. So there's no zip ties, there's no fishing line, there's no push pins. I literally just have them wedged in the screen, and then I took the fake plants and then kind of like wrapped them around to make sure that there's plenty of coverage to make sure that the babies feel nice and secure. So that also took a lot of time to do that across all of the enclosures. Prior to putting the branches in there, I of course make sure to sanitize them. And then at the bottom of the enclosures, I opted to just do paper towels. This has also been working really well because it's a good contrasting color for like the teeny tiny poops, because they're gonna be really, really small and tiny little brown things. So I can spot them easily on the paper towels. And then once a week, sometimes twice a week, depending on how much poop there is, I can go in, just pull out that paper towel, toss it, put a new one in, and keep things nice and fresh. So that's what I did for the inside. I also put in a small little deli cup, you know, like little gecko feeding cups you can get from like Pangea, as like the little feeder dish, and that's what the inside is. Next, we have the lighting. So it's pretty common knowledge that baby chameleons, and when I say baby, I mean like hatchling, newborn babies, don't need a heat bulb, right? So we're just looking for UVB. So what I decided to use is a 36-inch wide fixture, because again, these are 36-inch shelves with a 34-inch bulb. I used the T5 fixture from the BioDude, and then I'm using a T5 6%, like I said, 34-inch bulb. So the BioDude also sponsored the lighting for these enclosures, so I want to give a big shout out to them. I do have an affiliate link with the BioDude, so if you shop through my link, that does support me and all the baby chameleons, so thank you in advance for anyone who takes advantage of my BioDude shopping list. What I did though was I raised the bulbs up above the enclosure because these are very small, right? They're only 12 inches tall, they're a foot tall. So if I were to just slap a T5 on there, then that could likely, according to my calculations, was too much UVB. So what I did was actually attach the UVB bulb up above, and with the shelves, you can actually decide the height that you want. So I was able to kind of measure that out. It's about, you know, the length of my arm, I guess. Not that that's very scientific, but I figured just, you can know, generally, like it's just a few inches above the height of the enclosure. So I was able to raise them up, and then I let the bulbs stay on while I was waiting for the babies to hatch so that they would kind of burn in a little bit, and then I could use my solar meter, which is the device we use to measure the UV index or the strength of the UVB bulb, and I was aiming for a reading of 3.0 at the top of the screen, so that if the babies are hanging upside down, which will happen, that they're not accidentally getting exposed to too much UVB. And these bulbs actually do put out a little bit of warmth, so there's no issues with like burning my chameleons or them getting too cold or anything like that. What's also cool about the BioDude fixtures and most T5 fixtures is that they connect to each other. So all these in one row, the next row are all, I think like there's a word for like Susie linked or something like that, but they're all connected to each other. So each row has one cord that then pulls into an outlet with a timer, and I have a smart plug on it, so all the lights turn on and off automatically. So that's been super nice. The last thing to really discuss is the misting system. So a lot of people prefer to hand mist their enclosures. I love that for you guys. I am team Mist King though. I absolutely love my Mist King for my adult enclosures, but I needed a separate misting system for the babies because they're on a different schedule and there's a bajillion of them. They're on opposite sides of the room. So I opted to get the advanced Mist King misting system. Now, that's the like biggest, baddest Mist King you can get. There's the starter, the ultimate, then there's the advanced. I just have the starter for my crested gecko, and then I have a starter for my adult chameleons, but with this many enclosures, you need a little more oomph, a little more, you know, a bigger pump is really what it comes down to. So I bought the advanced misting system, which is an investment, let me tell you. And then every single enclosure needed nozzles. I did buy the smaller nozzles that Mist King makes versus like the bigger ones because we're working with small amount of space. Also, they're cheaper than the big ones. And then all of the tubing. So what I did was, because of where the door swings to the right, so I put the nozzles in the upper left corner there and then pointed them into the corner. So all that to say is I poked a hole in the front left corner and then attached a T valve so that it can connect to each other, and then measured out the tubing. This was the most tedious part, truly, and you're working in such small parts and pieces that it's you have to be precise, and I had some leaks at one point because my tubing wasn't all the way connected. So it's good now and like truly have no issues with it, but getting it set up was a lot of work, a lot of work, but I'm so grateful for it. So every single baby has a misting system on it as well. So I only have the mister go off for 30 seconds versus my adults are going for multiple minutes. So that's why they need to be on a smaller one, but that's been working out great and keeping all the babies hydrated. So you guys have it. That is the gist of it. Thinking if there's anything I would do differently. I don't think so. And I have all the enclosures numbered just so I could keep track of everyone and who's eating and who's, you know, shedding and all that fun stuff. Yeah, I'm very happy with this. I think it's visually stunning. All the babies are doing great in here. I haven't had any issues with anyone. I've heard of babies like hitting their tongue against the acrylic because like a fly is there or like the reflection. I haven't had any issues with that. One thing I will say is bug escapees. So the hatchlings are eating fruit flies, bean beetles, tiny bugs, pinhead crickets moving up to, you know, 1/8 inch, then 1/4 inch crickets. Those bugs will pop out of these enclosures because it's not a perfect fit in their screen. So like the fruit flies are smaller than the teeny tiny holes of the screen. So what I do is I put a blueberry in there and that keeps the flies in there. But I have fruit flies everywhere in my reptile room. Crickets pop out of there all the time. So like, I don't know how you would really get around that unless you're using like glass or PVC enclosures, and then those have, you know, other considerations that come with that. So that would probably be my only complaint with these enclosures, is that the bugs will escape. But like I said, that's probably true of most enclosures because you're just dealing with like really, really small bugs. If I was like investing, like I was going like, I'm gonna breed clutch after clutch and this is like a true like setup investment, then what I would probably do is like seal the edges. So then that's less likely for bugs to get through. And then this little front screen panel, I may try and block that off with like a little PVC so then the fruit flies can't pop through there. They can still pop through the top. There's no way around that because you do want the screen top, but I think that would probably help the escapees. So that would be my one thing, but there you guys have it. I know one question people are probably curious on is like, how much did all of this cost? So like I said, a big thank you to my sponsors, both ZoomIt and BioDude, for helping out with the enclosures and lights. I did pay for myself everything else that comes with it. So in total, if you were to pay for all this top to bottom, you're looking about $3,200 as of this time of the year and the world and whatever else. Like a little over $3,000 is what it costs to get all of this set up, and that is for 30 enclosures. So if you had more babies, then more dollars. But there you guys have it. I hope this was helpful. Like I said, all the stuff is linked on my website. Let me know if you've raised babies, what techniques you've done. There's definitely cheaper options. You could do, you know, a butterfly cage or butterfly enclosure. You could do like a DIY like bin setup. Like this is just what I did. Like I said, there's more than one way to do it. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up, leave any questions or comments down below. Feel free to subscribe to know when I post a new video. You can follow me and all my chameleons on social media at Neptune the Chameleon. Check out my website, neptunethechameleon.com. Otherwise, thank you so much, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye. So I needed to get a separate misting system. Oh, see, the lights were gonna turn off. Hold on, we'll turn them back on. 2 seconds.